This is episode 87 of Pausing on the Prophets, and today we are looking at Isaiah 10:20 through 23, and Isaiah writes, "Now in that day the remnant of Israel and those of the house of Jacob who have escaped will never again rely on the one who struck them, but will rely on the Lord, the Holy One of Israel. A remnant will return, the remnant of Jacob, to the mighty God. For though your people, O Israel, may be like the sand of the sea, only a remnant within them will return. A destruction is determined, overflowing with righteousness. For a complete destruction, one that is decreed, the Lord God of hosts will execute in the midst of the whole land." I want us to think about what God promises and how he identifies himself in this short passage. Even though the Assyrians will come, they'll overflow up to the neck of Judah, Isaiah tells us in 8:8. Yet God's righteousness will, here we learn, be what eventually overflows. And God promises a remnant that will return. And he tells them that they will never again rely on Assyria. Instead, they will rely on the Holy One of Israel. And it's this phrase that I want us to focus on. 24 times in Isaiah, God refers to himself as the Holy One of Israel. What is remarkable is not just that God is holy, which he alone is, but that he specifically ties himself to Israel. He is the Holy One of Israel. He ties himself to a people that up to this point seems mainly to be the object of his wrath. Why should he identify with such people? Because he loves them. Because he made a covenant with Abraham. Now, we might argue that the faithful line comes through David of the tribe of Judah. True enough, and thus all the more remarkable that God would continue to identify himself with this rebel northern kingdom. And so we get yet another reason to trust his promises. He's not ashamed to identify with his people, proclaiming this truth for all the world to hear.